Welcome in, everybody, to the Boston Sports Summit. That's right. I am your host, Tim Barnard, where we have a big show for you tonight. We have a lot going on with the Red Sox and them signing Brian Bello. Plus, we just got word that Lucas Giolito did not have to get Tommy John surgery, but he's still out for the 24 season. As for the Celtics, they keep their winning ways just continuing. I mean, they are the first team in the NBA this season to hit 50 wins, which is incredible. But they still are finding ways to struggle late in games, how is that going to affect them in the playoffs? And then next we have the Boston Bruins, and they just finished up their NHL trade deadline, making a couple acquisitions for Pat Maroon, Andrew Peeke, and how good are those guys? Are they even worth the trade capital that the Bruins spent, even though we all know that they didn't really have much to spend on anyway? And then we are going to be going over the Patriots and the Dynasty once again. They have episodes 7 and 8 this time, talking about Deflategate and talking about the Patriots drafting Jimmy Garoppolo. But before we get into all of that, we got to start off with the big-hitting, hard-hitting news that is the NFL free agency. But before we get into that, guys, don't forget, please like, share, subscribe this show. Tell all your friends if they're big Boston sports fans or if they hate Boston sports, tell them to come to this show. It's going to be a great time for everybody. You can like, share. You can check out my social media on Instagram, Boston Sports Summit, on Twitter, Boss Sports Summit, YouTube, and then you can always check it out on the Grid Network. There we go. So every Wednesday, 7 p.m., Grid Network is where you find the Boston Sports Summit. But we have NFL free agency. The Patriots are clearly in a rebuild situation because, let's face it, they went 4-13. Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest head coach in NFL history, is out. No franchise quarterback for this team, seeing as they just traded Mac Jones to Jacksonville. And the Patriots have a rookie head coach in Gerard Mayo, who I don't even know if he deserves to be the head coach. Listen, he's a good guy. He seems like a smart man who's gone out and done business elsewhere, but he's only been coaching in the NFL for 5 years and never really ran the defense as a whole, because he had time split between him and I want to say Steve Belichick, one of Bill's kids. It was just kind of a debacle. So the fact that he is the head coach, a little surprising, but still rookie head coach, clearly in a rebuild type situation. And so the legal tampering period began on Monday, which is basically free agency, right? And as I've said on my social media, that the Patriots did a transition tag on Kyle Duggar, meaning that he can go out and still get offers from other teams, and that if the Patriots don't want to match the offer, they can just tell Kyle, thanks for your service, but you can go now. And the best part about that transition tag is the fact that, I don't know, the Patriots get no compensation if he leaves. It's not like any other sport with who's a restricted free agent. If you're a restricted free agent and you sign with another team and your first team tells you you can go off, that's too much money for our blood, then the signee team has to give up a certain draft pick to the original team. And the fact that the transition tag doesn't have that is really kind of blowing my mind, and it just is utterly ridiculous. You're telling me that you don't know what to do about Kyle Duggar, and you're basically saying that, hey, go figure out what your market value is and then come back to us. But we want to make sure that you will come back to us. Why would you do it like that? Why can't you just say to the guy, hey, listen, we really like you as a player. We really want you, but you can go figure out your market value and then just come back to us. No, we're going to force you to come back to us. That's the killer right there, which tells me that, one, they are too stupid to understand what the market value is for Kyle Duggar in the safety position as a whole. And also, too, you don't have a good relationship with him because you don't trust him enough to come back and let you know. You're the team that freaking drafted him. Granted, Bill Belichick in the last 10 years hasn't signed a top 3 draft pick in over 10 years, hasn't given that pick a second contract, in other words. So players drafted from the first round to the third round for the last 10 years have not signed a second contract. But Bill Belichick ain't here anymore. How did you mess that up? You know, I'm looking at you, Kraft family, because who else? Who else was there? So they put the transition tag on Duggar. They kept Michael Onwenu, which I think is a good move because you need to shore up that line. You know, as I would call Onwenu like an above average tackle. He's not elite by any stretch of the imagination, but he's good. He gets the job done. He's a good tackle. So they needed to keep him, and glad they did. They also re-signed Jalen Reagor. Why? Like it just an extra body. He's not going to play. And I heard somebody say that, oh, he's a good special teamer. He's a good kick returner. Well, in case you didn't realize, they're siphoning that position out of the game anyway. So why are you bringing him back? He's not a good receiver at all. He's just an extra body in case what? Somebody gets hurt? Stupid. They re-signed Hunter Henry, Kendrick Bourne, Josh Uche, and Anthony Jennings, which all those guys, Hunter Henry, been a good, consistent player. Signed for way too much money when we first got him. But now I think it's a reasonable price. He, again, solid guy. Him and Mac Jones had somewhat of a decent rapport that, hey, he relied on him pretty heavily. And Hunter Henry was able to bail out Mac Jones a couple of times. Kendrick Bourne is also a good pickup because I thought he was actually going to have his best season last year. He was on pace for 800 yards. And then, of course, he got hurt, tore his ACL. So I think it's for, fairly good money. I think it was 3 by 19. And that's where, I can live with it. And I like Bourne. He's a good guy. Seems like a really good, locker room guy. And so I'm very, happy that they brought him back. But does that mean that the position at receiver is done? No. The position at receiver is long from done. I'll get to that in just a minute. Josh Uche, Anthony Jennings. Uche signing for 1 by $3 million, worth up to 8 is wild to me because he at least had 11 and a half sacks, and he's a good player. So hearing that he got more money elsewhere but decided to stay, I think tells you a lot. I think he tells you that he's a big fan of Gerard Mayo and that he really wants to be here. He wants to be a Patriot, and that's for a team that just went 4-13, a little surprising. A little surprising, seeing as, he came in right around that transition period from Brady to Newton to Mac Jones. And then Anthony Jennings. I thought Anthony, got to make sure I get that right, Jennings outplayed Uche last year. I thought he was getting after the quarterback a lot better than Uche did. I thought Uche disappeared more and more as the season went on. And so glad they kept those guys. And then through the legal tampering period, they went out, signed running back Antonio Gibson. They brought back for a second term Jacoby Brissett, signed Cleveland's linebacker Sinone Taki, signed tight end Austin Hooper, and brought in offensive lineman Chukwuma Okorafor from Pittsburgh. And, all good guys. I mean, Antonio Gibson is definitely more of a third down back, more of a receiving back. And with the rise of Brian Robinson for the Commanders, Antonio Gibson, took a back seat. He took a back seat and became more of that third down back and proved himself because he's in the top 10 of pass blocking for running backs, which, if you were raised under the Patriots and Bill Belichick and all of that, how much important pass blocking is for the running backs, making sure that they can pick up on the right blitzer and the right defender who's going to be coming after and who, heck, is going to be breaking through the line earlier, right? I mean, that's how basically we won one of the ways we won Super Bowl 51 against Atlanta. Dante Hightower lined up in the 9-tech out wide. He blitzed. Freeman never even saw him. Goes right by, strip sacks Ryan. We get the ball. The rest is history. But Jacoby Brissett, I mean, that's really, I think, the story. Out of all the guys that they signed during the legal tampering period, I think Jacoby Brissett's like the real story because, yes, he's coming back for a second term with the Pats, but what can he do? Do I feel confident in Jacoby Brissett leading this team for 17 games next year? No. And if you do, I'm going to argue that you're delusional because Jacoby Brissett has been an average player, most of his career, and he had one good year with the Colts, but he never won the starting job, right? I remember that Houston Texan game like it was yesterday back in 2016 when Brady was dealing with his 4-game suspension. And Jacoby Brissett barely threw the ball. Like, he threw it enough, but it was not him throwing the ball that helped us win that game. It was him running the ball and us just running it down the Texans' throats that game. So having him back, I don't know. There were so many. It feels like such a safe move. And everyone, says that, he's a great locker room guy. And I don't blame them. Like, Jacoby Brissett seems like a really good dude, really good locker room guy. And yet, is that going to move the needle for me in terms of what's going to happen next season? No. If anything, we basically brought back almost the same guys that went 4-13 and got rid of our starting quarterback in Mac Jones. So do I feel like Mac Jones is a better quarterback than Jacoby Brissett? Honestly, yeah, I think I kind of do. I think he's a little bit better. Not by a lot, but I think Mac Jones, when given the right coaching and when he is able to get his head on straight and believes in himself, I think Mac Jones is a better quarterback. So, am I excited that Jacoby Brissett is the quarterback for the New England Patriots as it stands when you could have had guys like Kirk Cousins? You could have had guys like Baker Mayfield, Gardner Minshew, right? I mean, it's the signings that they did, for the most part, seem basic, simple, and with these signings, I don't feel confident that, okay, we're a playoff team. The Patriots are back in the playoffs. That's how I feel right here, right now, based on the first 3 days. Well, the official free agency period started at 4:00 today. So the 2.5 days worth of legal tampering, this is how I feel. The Patriots are back into the playoffs. No, not even close. If anything, we are the same, one win better or one win worse. That's what I believe right now. And again, everything is subject to change. There's still plenty of the offseason left. There is still the NFL draft to come. There are still trades that the Patriots are being discussed on. And I am, hoping that they can pull off a move. And as I talked about several weeks ago, actually maybe a month and a half ago, when it came to this free agency class, I'm not mad that they're not spending. I can't be, because I said it's not a strong class. And I am one who is true to my word. I understand what I said, and I am not going to go back on it. So by understanding that this is not a strong free agency class, there were moves to be had and to still be done. But, I still look at this as kind of like a blah type of move. I would have been excited had the Patriots gotten Saquon Barkley. I would have been excited had the Patriots signed Kirk Cousins or even Gardner Minshew. And that, to me, felt like the ideal bridge quarterback. Those two guys, Kirk and Gardner Minshew. Saquon, I just liked because, hell, if you could have Saquon and Ramondre as, your running back tandem, damn, that's a good running back tandem right there. And you definitely didn't need to do a, first, second down back. You could alternate with that easily. But the ideal bridge quarterback, in my opinion, was Kirk Cousins or Gardner Minshew. Because with Kirk Cousins, he's definitely older. Yes, he signed a 4-year deal with Atlanta. There were reports before the tampering period that he was going to stick around for 2. He wanted 2 at 90, making 45 a year. But with Kirk going 4 and 180, getting 100 guaranteed, I think that's a deal the Patriots could have and maybe should have done. Because I am of the belief that if you take a quarterback, early on in the draft, there is a very, very, very few that can jump in right away. First training camp completed, first preseason completed, week 1. This is our guy. The rookie is our guy. And Mac Jones, I thought, did a serviceable job doing that. I think had not Patricia came in and all that nonsense happened last year, or technically 2 years ago, but had it not happened for the 22-23 season, I think Mac could have been a better, more solid quarterback. Peyton Manning took his lumps in his rookie season, leading for most interceptions by a rookie quarterback. So I like the idea of taking a guy who has been in the league, he's a veteran, he's played for quite a while, him mentoring willingly or inadvertently mentoring the young kid, and then a couple of years down the road, it's like, all right, hey, thanks, thank you, you're done, we're good. And Bill tried to do that with Jimmy Garoppolo, as they talked about in the Dynasty on episode 8 last week, and talk more about that later. But that's what I thought Kirk would have been great for, because Kirk has made so much money in his NFL career that he's got nothing to lose. He really has nothing to lose by training this young buck. That's it. It's all he needed, basically. So I thought that Kirk Cousins would have been a great fit for New England. Now, whether or not he wanted to be here, I'm not even bringing that up. I'm just saying that would have been the great fit. Also, for a bridge quarterback, I love Gardner Minshew. I love Gardner Minshew coming out of Washington State. I thought he had this, charisma, this moxie. He is just looks like a funny guy, and someone that you could really build around, at least as a solid quarterback for your future. And I thought he would have been a great fit here, because if we didn't take a quarterback at number 3, right? If that was the Patriot way, they don't want to take a quarterback at 3. Here, we got this young kid who's, I think, 27, 28, Gardner Minshew, and he's going to come in, he's going to play, and you know what? We can sign him to a 2-year deal, and if he performs well after year 1, here it is. Scrap the rest of that deal. Here's an extension. There you go, right? We get him for at least 5 more years after that. So almost like a prove-it deal for Minshew, but we also have the young kid drafted later on in the draft, where it's like, hey, you can learn. If Gardner sucks, then eventually, probably near the end of the year, you'll come in and then we'll deal with Gardner however we deal with him. And then you're going to be the starter for the, what's this year, 24-25? Okay, the 25-26 season. So that is the reason why I like Gardner. And then plus, too, he nearly led the Colts to a playoff berth. He was that close. And that game versus Houston, week 18, was electric to watch. So with all of this going on, one of the questions that I have is, what is their direction heading into the NFL draft, right? Because everybody wants to have their opinion. Everybody wants to say the Pats are going to go quarterback, the Pats are going to trade out, the Pats are going to do this, blah, 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 blah. There's so much going on, right? And I look at it like there's technically three directions the Patriots can head after bringing in Antonio Gibson, Jacoby Brissett, re-signing some of their much-needed positions. And the first direction being they're going to draft the quarterback at number 3. Whoever's sitting there, whether it be Jaden Daniels or Drake May, they're going to draft him. I'd be shocked if Caleb Williams falls to them at 3. I highly doubt that's going to happen. There's lots to talk about the Bears trying to trade Justin Fields, but the Bears are taking Caleb Williams, and then it's just, okay, are we taking Drake May or Jaden Daniels? The Patriots feel comfortable. It sounds like that's going to be it. That's what they're going to do. The other direction they could head in is draft a top receiver or tackle at 3. And it's not a bad idea. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr., number 3, seems to be like the stud number 1 guy that this team desperately needs, as well as a stud offensive tackle. A huge fan of Joe Alt after watching the combine. The dude looks extremely athletic. He's 6'8" and like 3/4, so he's basically 6'9". I mean, he is a mammoth of a man who is agile, who can move. I thought his 3-cone drill was pretty damn impressive. So they could do that at 3. Or they could trade back, require more assets, and then wherever they trade back to, preferably within the top 10 or top 11, if Minnesota gives up their pick, that's where, okay, we take the best available guy. In other words, we're going to take a receiver. We're going to take the offensive tackle, whether it be Joe Alt or the Penn State kid who I just cannot pronounce his name for the life of me. And then after we draft that kid, we'll jump back into the later in the first round and take Michael Penix, Bo Nix. I want to stay the hell away from Spencer Rattler because Spencer Rattler scares the crap out of me as a Florida Gator fan. He's a guy who's, as you can see right there, go Gators. That's right. Chomp, chomp. I watched Spencer Rattler. The dude crumbles with so much ease. He is weak-minded. He's not good. He's good enough, but not anywhere near leading this team, this organization out of a 4-13 stint this year and in the future. Yeah, I'm never going to show this again, but yeah, Marcus Goldenose, please. Yeah. That hurts. That hurts saying that. So go Gators. But ultimately, my thoughts on what I want them to do is just like draft day and Kevin Costner writing on the little post-it note he has throughout the whole film. No matter what, trade back. Find somebody right now to take 3. I don't like the reports of them being comfortable taking anybody. And again, this is Lion season, so it's understandable that note is out. That idea that, hey, the Patriots are comfortable with taking Jaden Daniels or Drake May. I don't like that. I don't like that talk. I don't like that thought. So find somebody right now, whether it be the Chargers, whether it be the Vikings, and not for nothing, the further you go back in the draft, in other words, if the Vikings at 11 want to jump up to 3 and you go to 11, yeah, the Vikings are going to have to pay a massive haul to jump that far up versus the Chargers at 5. The Chargers are going to have to pay a big haul, but I don't think it's going to be as lucrative as what Minnesota could give up. So I want them to trade back no matter what, because this is a very deep tackle class, is a very deep receiver class, and what seems to be a seemingly deep quarterback class once you get just with the top 6 quarterbacks, right? So I want them to trade back because this is not going to be a one-and-done type year. Gardner Minshew could have been the guy. Kirk Cousins could have been the guy, either one, that could have given this team a playoff push, right? A team that come mid to late December, we're playing games that are worth getting into the playoffs for. Yeah, you know what I mean. But with Jacoby Brissett, that doesn't feel like it. And no matter what, I'm very comfortable with the idea that Jacoby Brissett can help and train and teach the young quarterback, no matter who it is. I'm a big fan of Michael Penix, even though he definitely has his injury history with him. And I actually talked about this on the Grid Network show, the 8 o'clock spot, every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock Eastern. So check it out. I'm on there a half decent amount of times. And Bryson, you're my guy. But, dude, you keep screwing me on the points, man. Come on. Nah, you're my guy, Bryson. Thank you. But it's, that's what I want them to do. I want them to trade back. I want them to, make sure that they know what they're doing and can get more than one guy in this draft. I don't want them drafting at 3. I don't want them drafted at 34. And then I don't want them drafting at 60, whatever. Rounds 1, 2, and 3, get 3 guys out of it. No, that's not how you're going to come back from this. That's not how it's going to work. So that, to me, no matter what, little post-it note, give it to Elliott Wolf that come the time the Patriots are announced that they're on the clock officially for the number 3 overall pick. Post a note, opens it up, trade back no matter what. All right, let's trade back. There we go. So that is what I believe they should do. And Marcus Penix is no joke. True. Yeah, I agree with that. He, outside of the national championship game where it definitely was a little suspect, he was definitely no joke against Texas, man. He looked elite. And that receiving core was pretty good themselves. So next, I just want to bring up real quickly that you can get your own The Boston Sports Summit merch on the Grid Network. It is actually called Enter the Grid, myspreadshop.com. The link is posted in the description below. So we have t-shirts, we have hoodies, we got hats, mugs, anything that you're thinking of, we have it. It's decorated with the Boston Sports Summit. So please go get some merch. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe all over Instagram and Twitter here. So don't forget, like, follow, share, subscribe. Tell everybody about the show. Next, I want to talk about the Bruins. All right. The big bad Bruins had themselves an NHL trade deadline that, well, let's face it, didn't live up to expectations, which, quite honestly, I knew that wasn't going to happen. It was a literal pipe dream that we were going to get some of the guys, especially because there were so many players that the Bruins would have to offload in order to free up the cap to bring in some of these big name guys like Noah Hannafin. And I was really bummed and kind of pissed that he went to Vegas. But hey, he hasn't signed an extension yet, so there we go. But the Bruins did make an acquisition for Pat Maroon. He was acquired from the Wild for Luke Toporowski and a conditional 6th-rounder, which that to me was interesting because a couple weeks prior, when I was talking about initially who I wanted the Bruins to get, I didn't mention him on the show because I just saw he went to IR, but I wanted Pat Maroon. I wanted Pat Maroon because I love his physicality. He's a tough SOB. He's a cup winner 3 years running like in a row, from 19 to 20 to 21. And so he has that history of going deep into the Stanley Cup. Great leader. But ironically, now he's wearing a Bruins sweater. And it's ironic because after the 2019 Stanley Cup final against the Blues, he went and joined the Lightning, where there was still a lot of scruffs between him and the Bruins, especially Brad Marchand. So the fact that he's wearing a Bruins sweater now is actually hilarious and wild. And you know what? Pat Maroon and the Bruins could even poke fun at themselves, posting on their social media just a funny video of Pat Maroon saying hi to a couple of the teammates and them giving him dirty looks, which, again, hilarious. Like, you have to find that funny. And plus, too, the whole thing with Pat Maroon and Jack Edwards, calling him fat at the start of the season, I think not earlier this season, but last year, it's so true. Like, I'm sorry, Pat. You were fat. You were 265 pounds or something like that, or, whatever you weighed in, maybe 280. And for your build, your frame, yeah, you came in fat. So I'm like, listen, I can't believe of all guys, Mr. Strong, physical, he's tough. I think he kind of played into the media and how the media was calling out Jack Edwards because, he's fat phobic, this, that, and the other. Like, spare me. When a professional athlete whose job is to be in shape, and I say this about everybody, from baseball, which is the worst, by the way, from baseball all the way to hockey, football, basketball, you name it. If you come in fat and out of shape, then yeah, you deserve every single right to be ridiculed and made fun of, because basically your job is to play your sport and train to be in shape. That's it. That's all you need to do. So when you come in and play-by-play guy calls you fat, sorry, pal, you're fat. And all you have to do about it is burn a few extra calories and stop maybe eating so much, right? So it's actually kind of funny. Like I said, it's ironic that he is now wearing a Bruins sweater, where that play-by-play announcer is now going to call his games when he comes back from his back surgery. And that's the big issue with Pat Maroon, is he probably will not come back onto the ice for the rest of the regular season. And the rest of the regular season, I think, finishes up around mid-April, like April 14th or 15th or something like that. So that's why he's on the IR. And the fact that you don't have your back in order definitely scares me when that is his style. That is his, his presence, is his physicality. But you know what? If he can make it back and we can make a deep playoff run because of him, and he is able to help out for all four of the series, hopefully, God willing, then I think it'll obviously be worth it. But as long as we can get through the first round, please, that's all I ask, especially if we have to go up against the friggin' Leafs, who, oh God, talk about insufferable fan base up there. Friggin' Canadians, no. But yeah, no, it's Toronto. As it stands right now, it would be Toronto. And I would hope that we wouldn't have to go 7 games against them, and hope Pat Maroon would come back and knock Austin Matthews and I want to say Matthew Barzal, but he plays for the Islanders. John Tavares is, the guy from the Islanders that the Toronto got. Knock them on their ass. That would be nice. The other guy that the Bruins picked up was Andrew Peeke, defenseman from Columbus, for Jakub Zboril and a 2027 third rounder. Now, I can tell you straight up, when I saw that it was Peeke for Zboril, I was pumped. I was elated because Zboril was the final guy in that first round. I think it was 12, 13, 14 were our draft picks in succession. And that's the draft that I will never stop talking about, because I don't know how you could royally mess that up going DeBrusk, Senyshyn, and Zboril 1, 2, 3 like that. When you had Matthew Barzal, guy I just mentioned, Sebastian Aho, and like I said, I will never stop talking about it because that is a massive, massive slight against Don Sweeney. And for all you Don Sweeney guys out there, I give him credit for his trade deadline trades. I do. He is an unbelievable pro scout and a great, trade guy. But the drafting, not so much. So trading Andrew Peeke for Jakub Zboril, I was pumped. I'm like, there we go. Great. 1 for 1. Perfect. But then I saw the 2027 third rounder, and I'm like, really? Why? And the reason why I asked that question is because for his career playing in Columbus, Andrew Peeke is a minus 60 in his NHL career. Minus 60. And as it was last year, was a minus 41. Now, last year, I do want to preface this with the fact that Columbus was the worst team in the Metro Division. They were the worst team in the Eastern Conference, and they were tied for the second worst team in the entire NHL with 59 points. So the only question I have is, okay, how much of him how much was he responsible for the minus 41 last year and the minus 60 for his career? Now, he's definitely responsible. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not trying to take away his responsibilities so that I can feel better for this trade. It sounds like I'm doing that, but I'm not, because I do genuinely want to know, was Andrew Peeke a halfway decent player? Is he a decent enough player to get that bottom pairing defenseman? Hell, is he a decent enough player where he can play as, one of the top 4 defense pairings, a second pairing? He'll never be a number 1 pairing, no. But is he good enough to be on that second pairing? That's my question. And I'll be honest, like I said, I don't follow Columbus too much. So giving up Zboril and a 27 third rounder is a little suspect, but because it is 4 years in the future, with this draft being the 24 draft, it's 4 years down the road from today. It is a little questionable to me, but the one thing that I do like about him was, when I looked it up, he was tied for second in block shots last season with 197. Here's a dude ready to lay it all out. He doesn't care if he pulls a Gregory Campbell where the puck goes off his leg and he breaks his leg and will still continue the shift. No, he lays down, sacrificed his body, blocked 197 shots while also dishing out 180 hits, last season. So he can play physical, and I like that. As long as we can protect our goalie, because that seems to be a massive issue for this team, then I'm all good with it, because a lot of our goalies recently, Swayman and Allmark, have been nicked a little bit, if you want to call it that, by opponents. So yeah, let's protect our goaltenders, guys, can we, please? So I'll say he seems like a good depth piece. Now, he'll make his Bruins debut tomorrow, so I'm excited for that. Lastly, during the trade deadline, it was reported that there were talks of Allmark going to LA and being a King. Well, turns out that Allmark blocked it. And unfortunately, the deal that could have been done that maybe could have helped this team in the future obviously didn't happen, especially for this season. But it also was reported that the player Pierre-Luc Dubois was the guy on that might have been involved. Now, I'm speculating that it was Pierre-Luc Dubois, but it was speculation on another situation where PLD, Pierre-Luc Dubois, PLD, excuse me, was available for trading from LA. So if he's available, does that mean the Bruins were going to try to trade Allmark for him? And if they did, I would hate that deal because his cap hit is absolutely absurd. It is somewhere around the line. Give me 1 second. Oh, here it is. 7 years, $8.5 million. Now, with our salary cap and trading Allmark, we have like a nickel to our cap before everything went down, before traded for Maroon, before traded for Peak. The Bruins had a nickel to their name in cap space. And so if we were trading Allmark, who cost $5 million this season, and we were going to bring in Pierre-Luc Dubois, who is on an $8.5 million deal by 7 years, like, no, I don't want him. And granted, he is a center. He is a top 6 center, but he left Columbus on a bad note. Then he got traded from, I want to say it was Winnipeg that he left Columbus for. Winnipeg or Edmonton. And he left them to go to LA, or got traded to LA and signed that big deal with the Kings. And now the Kings are looking to deal him. So if that's the case, if that was the swing there, then I am totally against it. But if you're going to tell me that they were going to trade for, I don't know, Moore or Kempe, like, then I'd be okay with that. Or Kylev, however you say his name, I'd be okay with that. But overall, nothing happened. Allmark is still on the team, and he showed that he wants to still be on here because he dominated against the Pittsburgh Penguins, making 38 saves on 39 shot attempts, earning the #1 star of the game. And not for nothing, I don't care if I'm sitting here saying that I wanted Allmark traded at the deadline, because you know what? I did. I also wanted a good deal for him as well. So because he didn't get traded doesn't mean that I can't be happy about it, or can't be, mad about it. But making 38 saves on 39 shot attempts, earning the #1 star against the Pittsburgh Penguins the day after the whole trade deadline, you know what? Yeah, that's good, because I love beating the Pittsburgh Penguins, especially since John Henry bought the friggin' team. So yeah, so John Henry, eat one, because the Bruins own your ass. That's right. And I love it. I always love beating John Henry in the Pittsburgh Penguins, let me tell you. But yeah, it was kind of interesting, and one of those situations where I definitely wanted Allmark traded. I also want to get a good deal out of him because he was the Vezina winner last year. He's still a very good goaltender. But if we could have used Allmark and DeBrusk in a trade that would have swung for Hanifin or somebody else, or Troy Terry out of Anaheim, I don't know, somebody like that, then sure, I would have been all for it. But it didn't happen. And so in typical Bruins fashion, they dominated John Henry's Pittsburgh Penguins. Thank you. But then did an absolute no-show against the Blues. It was an absolutely disgusting effort. And while the Bruins did outshoot the Blues, I mean, the Bees weren't on the same page. They seemed to be riding high off that victory. And They need to get their act together. Like this, that's why I wanted a big move, like a big shakeup with this team, because they do this stuff all the friggin' time. And I'm sure that they're going to compete and try hard once the playoffs roll around. And I'm hoping that they're not doing this because of what happened last year, winning every game practically, then blowing it in the first round. But now that they kept Allmark and Swayman, the playoffs are going to be a hell of a lot more interesting, because if Swayman starts game one and shuts out whoever we play, let's say it's the Leafs, shuts out the Leafs, are they going to roll Allmark out for game two? And why would they do that, right? Why would they do that if something like that happened? And then if they do and they lose, that's why, in my opinion, they needed to get rid of Allmark. They needed to trade him, because we need to see what Swayman has, and we need to see what the young kids have in Providence. This kid, Brandon Boosie, is supposed to be like this mammoth of a guy. And yeah, I want to see what he has. At least in the last few games of regular season, lock a playoff spot up. You're not that far off. So do that. And as I mentioned earlier with Andrew Peeke, he's making his debut tomorrow night at the Bell Center against Montreal. And not for nothing, in my opinion, these guys better bring their friggin' A game up in Montreal, because I hate Montreal. I'm not a fan of the Canadiens. The Canadiens, to me, are like the Yankees to my Red Sox fandom. So, yeah, I can't stand the Canadiens, whether they're good or whether they're bad. It's always fun when both teams are good. But even when the Bruins are good and the Canadiens suck, it's still fun to just pound on them. And I'm sure they said the same thing for about 100 years now, which, not fun. And by the way, the Canadiens got so good because they cheated. They had a loophole in the drafting way, way back in the day. That's how they got all the good players. But that's a story for a different day. Next, talking about a team that is going to make a playoff run, the Boston Celtics. They finally reached 50 wins and finished their road trip going 3-2. Now, this 5-game road trip consisted of Cleveland, Denver, in Cleveland, in Denver, in Phoenix, in Portland, and then in Utah. So they just finished up their Utah game, and against Portland, that was their number 50 win game. But I want to jump back to the game against Denver, because I bitched and yelled and was so angry at how they lost against Cleveland that when they played Denver, I definitely had higher hopes. I was hoping that, the game, first game against Denver in Boston, both the Jays sucked in that game one. It was not good. And then, of course, Tatum missed that final shot. He talked about how the clock was sped up in his head. He wasn't so sure about everything. And then he shot the ball with like 3 seconds left. There was still so much time. He could have made a move instead of doing that cheap-ass fadeaway there. But he missed the final shot. Denver takes game one in Boston. And now in game two, Jaylen Brown lit it up, going for 41 points. But both Tatum and Brown struggled in the fourth quarter mightily, going 1 of 5 and 2 of 7 respectively. Tatum 1 of 5, Brown 2 of 7. Tatum played the full 12 minutes in the fourth, while Brown played the final 10. And of course, Tatum had a chance at a wide open three to put Boston up 1 late in the fourth quarter, and it rimmed out. And then Jokic got the ball, which led to, I almost said Blake Griffin, but Aaron Gordon's alley-oop. And that's where you could tell, done. It was over. And it kind of bothered me because Denver's a good team. I am not taking anything away from Denver. They are the reigning NBA champs, and Jokic is arguably the best player. When people were complaining last year, I'm pretty sure it was, about Jokic being in the running for another MVP or, being the leader for the MVP. And people were bitching about that for reasons I'm not going to get into on this show. After watching that game too, because again, it's not like I watch Denver basketball every single time they play. After watching that second game, yeah, I am 100% agreement that Jokic should have been the MVP for the last 5 years. Like, that is how good this guy is. Not because he can score at will. Not because he's going to put up 70 like Joel Embiid just did. No. He can score, but he can pass. He reminds me of some of the Celtics from the 86 championship. Arguably the best passing big men to ever play the game. Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, and our sixth man, Bill Walton, coming off the bench. That's right, Bill Walton in 86 coming off the bench. Watching those guys pass the ball around and just watching the ball move with them all in sync, it's almost like artwork for them. And watching Nikola Jokic, that's exactly what it was. That alley-oop to Aaron Gordon was like, my jaw dropped. Like, I couldn't even react. That's how, how cool and great that was. Now, I will say that, you could argue that I didn't move because I was so pissed off because I knew that was the game right there, which is a little true. But I didn't move because I was a little pissed, but also because that was such an unbelievable play. An unbelievable play. And the way Jokic is able to control the court and control the ball and his passing and his knowledge of the game, it's wild to me. It's absolutely wild to me. That's why, I am scared of Denver. I am 100% scared of Denver because Jokic is a problem for this team. We have our big man in Porzingis. He can't defend, Porzingis can't defend Jokic. But on the other hand, Jokic can't defend Porzingis. Horford is too old to guard Porzingis. And I'm not sure if there is anybody on this team that can guard Jokic. So Denver scares me. If they make it to the finals and we make it to the finals, I am scared of that being 7 games. But they were able to get a good win going away against the Suns a couple days later. Then basically just annihilated the Trailblazers, control that game from basically the jump, and beat the Trailblazers without Holiday and Porzingis, while also last night them beating the Jazz like easily without Porzingis, Brown, and Al Horford. And Derek White had an absolute field day against the Jazz, going 7 of 11 from behind the arc. Was just wild to me. Like, even though Tatum scored 38 and led the team in points, I give the props to Derek White, man. Going 7 from 11 from behind 3. It was raining threes from White's hands. That I like to see. And to be able to finish up that series the way they did against Utah, the series meaning the 5-game road trip that they just had, they looked good in that second half. They looked really good. Just being that deep, with Pritchard, Cornette, Hauser, and the new guys, Tillman, like that depth that the Boston Celtics have is arguably second to none in the league right now. So I am saying it now. I've said it before. I'll say it again, and I'll say it now. This is a championship or bust season. And don't you tell me otherwise. And if you could sit here and tell me with a straight face as a Celtics fan, or even if you're not a Celtics fan, but if you could sit there and tell me that, well, it's good for them to make it to the finals, then I'm sorry. You deserve to be, with the other fans that think making the AFC Championship was banner worthy like the Colts did, or like the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. Yep, I'm still going to call them the Devil Rays because that's a better name than the Rays, who hung up a banner for making the play-in game. Losing, but hanging up a banner nonetheless. So, yeah, spare me on the it's good for them to make it to the finals, and it's okay if they lose. No. Championship or bust. Just like the 07 Pats. Championship or bust. And that was a massive bust. One that I'm still hanging on to and will hang on to for the rest of my life. Now, moving on to something I want to say entertaining, but it's entertaining because, well, there's always something to talk about with this team. And the new thing to talk about with this team is the fact that they actually did something worth a damn. They actually did something that was worth it. They didn't add. They kept Brian Bello. They re-signed Brian Bello to a 6-year, $55 million deal. And he's 24 years old, right? 6 years, $55 million contract extension. And I am pumped about it. Absolutely pumped about it. But, it does include a 7th-year club option worth $21 million. So, good for him. He's going to make a lot of money at 24. He'll be done by 30, 31. But my fear is that he's going to learn to hate the Red Sox because what he just signed, in my opinion, was not a player-friendly deal. I think he wanted to sign. I think he was, willing to play it safe rather than risk the possibility of him playing well or getting injured and then not having that $55 million with the 7th-year club option, making it worth $76 million total. My fear is that he does play well this season. He'll play well next season. And then all of a sudden he's going to be pissed because he realized that he signed a bad deal. And the Sox are obviously going to, hold him up to the contract unless they want to trade him and do everything else like they did with Mookie and get rid of him like Xander, all that crap. So I don't know. I'm a little worried because I think this kid definitely has a high potential. He keeps working with Pedro Martinez, and I'm excited to see what he can do. But I also think that just like a lot of great pitchers, you need to get players around him. You need to get players around him, offensive guys that can, hit the ball and give him offensive support. That's the thing. Like when you're losing games, but the final score is 1-0, 2-1, 2-0, and you're the starting pitching that went 7 innings, 8 innings deep, and that's the final outcome. Yeah, pretty demoralizing. So hopefully the Red Sox can do well. Definitely got a very team-friendly deal with a potential ace on this team. And then, of course, Lucas Giolito gets an internal elbow brace to repair his right ulnar collateral ligament, his UCL, but was able to avoid Tommy John surgery. So that's good news. He was able to avoid Tommy John, but remains out for the rest of the year. And that's good and bad. It's good because it's not Tommy John. He doesn't have to be gone for the next year and a half. No, he's gone for pretty much the next year, and he's got a player option for next season, which, I don't know. hit the player option now. Like, that's, like, oh, yeah, hey, John, I got that player option, right? Yeah, I'm cashing it in. Like, let's go. Let's ride, baby. 2025. What am I, Russell Wilson over here? But so Lucas Giolito was able to avoid Tommy John, but he's still done for the year. He's still done for the year. And once again, I want to thank you guys for listening. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe on all the social media platforms, on the Grid Network. Tell everybody about the show live Wednesdays at 7. And the last thing, like I mentioned, I'm going to get to is all about the Dynasty. Now, if you just give me 1 second. Sorry about that. But the Dynasty, they just dropped episodes 7 and 8. Now, 7 and 8 started with Deflategate. And Deflategate was an interesting one because I'll never forget going through all of it. It all started, obviously, in the 2014-2015 AFC Conference Championship. Colts up in New England playing the Pats, and Tom Brady throws an interception in a rainy, cold game, and they use that ball, getting a tip from the Ravens, getting a tip from the NFL, saying that the Patriots are using underinflated footballs. Well, didn't that blow up in their face? It blew up in everybody's face, basically, because it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous. And when the episode started off, this was the funny part. The episode, so we went from 2001, the whole Brady and Bledsoe thing, to, doing the snow. All the way to 2000. And now we're on 2014. Okay, we're on 2014. But they started off the freaking episode with Rupert Murdoch. What did it say? The CEO of Fox Corporation or something like that. Talking about the time Putin stole Robert Kraft's ring, in which I was sitting there going, why are we reliving this? Like, and I know Robert Kraft tried to finagle a way to make it all wrap up into one. But, like, what are we doing? Why is this dynasty so concerned about, Vladimir Putin stealing Robert Kraft's ring? And then, of course, you should ask for it. Well, the president of the United States called me up and basically said it would go over well for Soviet-U.S. relations. You know what that's a sign of? A loser. I'm sorry. Go tell Putin to give your damn ring back. I don't care. Like, it was so dumb. And then Rupert Murdoch, what does he have to do with the friggin' dynasty? Zero. Zilch. Nada. All right? So please, get him and all the scrubs basically off my screen. Secondly, Deflategate. You missed a lot. You really, really, really missed a lot. You didn't bring up the Wells report in context, which, you bring it up for the sheer fact of saying that you did it. And I know now they're trying to, I think, play politics, and, the Crafts are like, well, we don't want to bring up the fact that I hated Roger Goodell, when this was all going on, and that, I understand. And this is what Robert Kraft actually said, saying to the effect of, Roger Goodell punished us so hard for this because of what happened with Spygate. And then they brought up the whole fact that, all the owners were chirping in Roger Goodell's ears about Spygate, saying that they should have released the tapes and why did you destroy it, this, that, and the other. Like, it was stupid. They also didn't bring up Mike Kensel, the former Jet front office who worked in the NFL office, was at that game against Indianapolis, and apparently was walking up and down the sidelines telling Patriots that they were in trouble. They were in trouble. And, of course, Mort's tweet saying that 11 of the 12 footballs were underinflated, never brought up, again, I'm pretty sure they didn't bring it up, but never brought up the fact that it was a total farce, or actually, they did bring up that the whole thing was a total farce, but they glossed over a lot of it. They did show that sports science clip, which, side note, Sports Science was a phenomenal show. For those of you who remember what Sports Science was, it was great. They talked about, one of my favorite episodes was, how hard or what is the easiest punch to take? A boxing glove, a UFC glove, or a bare fist? And it's exactly as you think. Bare fist sucks. UFC glove is number 2. Boxing glove is the easiest to take. Great show. Absolutely great show. But the funny part about that is they talked about how it's easier to grip and to catch, but they never brought up the fact about how much harder it is to throw, especially in inclement weather like the AFC Championship game in January 2015. They never brought that up. Again, the direction of this show was just terrible. And I'm not even getting on him for Bill. I'm just saying the whole direction of this was just god-awful. And I understand that, it's coming from the book, The Dynasty. The book was basically Robert Kraft's view of everything that went on. But, Matthew Hamachek, one of the biggest things about that, which bugged the crap out of me, was how, he went on 98.5. He talked about, he went on Toucher and Hardy's show in the mornings. And when they brought up the question of, a lot of people are coming at it saying that, this is all slanted towards Bill. It's unfair towards him, blah, blah, blah. Like, what are your thoughts on that? And, of course, he calls it a big conspiracy because that's all you have to do nowadays is call something a conspiracy. And, oh, my God, it's a conspiracy. All you guys are crazy. When, hey, Matt, open your friggin' eyes. Like, you're telling me that this isn't slanted towards Bill? And because all he says was his philosophy is he will accept all the blame while all the love he pushes on to the other people who worked on it. And goes on to say that the Crafts had absolutely no involvement. Seriously? You're talking with Robert and Jonathan on camera. What are you doing off camera? Huh? What are you doing off camera? Now, I'm not saying that they were over your shoulder, hovering around, trying to, micromanage. That's the word I'm looking for. It's not like Robert and Jonathan are looking over your shoulder, micromanaging what you're doing. But it is Kraft Dynasty LLC 2024. That is the copyright who owns it. At the very end, the last slide you see. Now, I'm not saying anything because I think it looks questionable, but I think it's just legal reasons. That the very last thing that you see on each episode, Kraft Dynasty LLC 2024, quote, the copyright holder is the author of this cinematographic and audiovisual work. I probably said that wrong, that's audiovisual work, end quote. Like I said, it's probably didn't say I'm not even going to say it. But it is questionable, right? It is a little suspect. And like I said, you're trying to tell me that Robert and Jonathan, who are in studio with you, giving you their thoughts and their insights and every single thing, that they haven't had conversations with you that isn't going to depict how you view or how you want to edit this movie or how you want to go at this documentary? Like, give me a break, man. And Michael Hawley, while on that show, he asked him the question about, not even asked, he basically stated how the Aaron Hernandez episode was very nuanced, that it's not as simple as basically Bill not granting Aaron the trade out of New England, that it led to the death of Odin Lloyd. And Hamachek disagreed with the fact that it's really not that nuanced, which blew my mind, because Hamachek was like, well, Aaron Hernandez is part of what's called, what I believe is Football Inc. And, Football Inc. excuses certain behavior. Excuses certain behavior were his exact words on the show. And with that, it lit me up, because really, Aaron Hernandez was the only one in the entire 20 years of the Patriots dynasty that got away with being a questionable character. And I'm not saying you have to be a sociopath like Hernandez was in order to be questionable, but I want to say that, Rob Gronkowski was not a Patriot way kind of guy. He was very out there, very he will do and say whatever. He will party, he will drink, he will do all of that. And you don't think that Bill, he was a part of Football Inc., that Bill excused his certain behavior because of how unbelievable talent Rob Gronkowski was? Randy Moss, another example, who's been on this show a number of times. You don't think his behavior got excused up until he got traded? I'm sorry. Matthew Hamachek is kind of a dope. He really is. And I wanted to say this last week, but it totally slipped my mind, that NFL Films is acknowledged in the credits. But an NFL film source said the organization was, quote, displeased with the portrayal of Bill Belichick in the series and chose to distance itself from director Matthew Hamachek's project. And the source of that was NBC. And yeah, I'm not surprised. I wanted to bring that up last week because that's when it came out. But let's face it, that's what it's not hard to figure out from anybody's perspective that this is slanted towards Bill. So then when you talk about Deflategate, right? Totally didn't bring up the ideal gas law. They just glossed over how people want to, disprove what happened. And the kicker, in my opinion, was how they framed it in a way that Bill was the one that basically threw Brady under the bus. Really? Bill Belichick was the one that threw Tom Brady under the bus for Deflategate. Now, that's probably true, but it's not as harsh as you might think it is. Because you're telling me that Robert Kraft had no institutional knowledge that Bill Belichick was going to say, Tom, this is on you, kid. I ain't taking the rap for any of it. Which leading to Bill Belichick's infamous line, which I will never forget, because I was sitting in my car listening to the 98.5 app, listening to the whole thing outside the Shelburne Meat Market, about to go buy some steaks up in Shelburne, Vermont. I listened to the whole press conference, and Bill Belichick saying that he's no Mona Lisa Vito of the football world had me in stitches. I was like, wait, did he just drop a My Cousin Vinny reference? And yes, he did. Which you could tell he probably got such a friggin' kick out of it. But the fact that they wanted to not even give Robert Kraft a mention that, hey, Tom, you're going to have to take the bill for this one, kid, because if Bill gets blamed for this, he's out of the league completely. And you're clean. You're perfect. There's nothing about you. So don't worry. You'll probably get the $20,000 fine, which I'm telling you, I was trying to look up what the penalty was because I'm pretty sure it's a $20,000 fine for playing with underinflated footballs. It was a nothing penalty, an absolutely nothing penalty. And yet you had 4-game suspension. You had draft picks forfeited because, as I mentioned earlier, Robert Kraft was mentioning how Roger Goodell got back at New England to appease the other 31 NFL owners. And the last thing I want to mention, too, is episode 8, which was the big Jimmy Garoppolo versus Tom Brady controversy. I'm sorry, but if you're Tom Brady, how do you not think of, I don't know, Bill Walsh bringing in Steve Young behind Joe Montana, and then Joe Montana going out and winning a couple more Super Bowls after that? Like, this is what Jimmy Garoppolo was. And it was kind of, I don't know, a little soft for my liking, even though true. One of the major problems that I'm beginning to develop with this whole thing is the lack of players interviewed and the amount of family members, the amount of journalists, the amount of, friends. Like I said, Bon Jovi having that one clip about, yeah, that's my team. Back in 2001, the New Jersey native thinks that the Patriots were his team playing against the Rams. Like, that was a little ridiculous. And same thing going for Rupert Murdoch there. But, all the reporters on there, especially Nora Princiotti, having literally almost doing the entire dialogue for episode 8, practically. And then, of course, her having to bring up the fact that, Jimmy Garoppolo is so cute, man. Like, come on. Can I just watch the friggin' Dynasty without having to, look at the guys or having to acknowledge how attractive or handsome, these gentlemen are? Like, they're playing football. I don't care. That's not my realm, okay? It's ridiculous that I had to sit there and listen to all this stuff. This is why I can't stand the friggin' Dynasty. I can't, because it's not the players. There should have been guys for like Vrabel, Rodney Harrison getting more screen time. Them going into Lawyer Malloy, giving him more screen time, especially when he got cut in 2003, right? Like, that's what the Dynasty was. And I will sit here and continue to be that way for one more week because I know they have 2 more episodes coming out, and I'm finding new ways to, piss on this, right? So, yeah, it's just overall, it's ridiculous to me that we're trying to sit here and watch something called The Dynasty, hoping that it would be a depiction of the Patriots dynasty from 2001 when Tom Brady got started, Drew Bledsoe getting hurt, going all the way up to 2019. And if you want to extend, a year or two to Brady winning in Tampa, that type of deal, then fine, be my guest. But this documentary with the title the way it was, and I'm not even trying to, talk about the book anymore. Screw the book. This dynasty should have been exactly that timeline. It should have been all players and coaches from that timeline. And that's it. Talking about every single thing that happened. Going from Bledsoe getting hurt, Brady coming in, them playing in the snowball, them winning Super Bowl 36, having an off year in 2002, winning 21 games from 03 to 04, cutting Lawyer, him going to Buffalo, losing 31-0, then winning 31-0 to start and end the season. Then going from Brady being 10-0 in the playoffs to, losing in Denver. Not to mention Ben Watson's hit on Champ Bailey's 99-yard supposed interception for a touchdown. Going all the way through Spygate, 18-1, going to 2010, going 14-2, losing to the Jets in the divisional round. Going to 2011, losing again, 2014, like I said, that's what it should have been. That's what it should have been. Ending on the high note that was Super Bowl 53 against the Rams. But no, it had to be a hit piece about Bill. It had to make Robert Kraft come out as I'm just this poor, innocent old man who wanted to keep this dynasty together. Oh, woe is me. Like, spare me the fact that he knew nothing about the Jimmy Garoppolo draft. Spare me the fact that, he is throwing all this shade at Bill about Hernandez and everything that went down, saying that his job was on the line, with Brady and Bledsoe way back in 01. Unbelievable. And again, I'm going to watch these last two episodes, and they're probably going to be a lot more accurate because Belichick is the bad guy. I'm not going to deny that. Belichick is the cold, calculated man, and I understand exactly what he did because no quarterback has ever played as well at Brady's age, going into his 40s, playing till his mid-40s. Brady should have won the MVP in his last season at the age of 44, 45. Like, that's how good he was. And so, yeah, I understand why Bill was ready to ship Brady out of here. That's what Garoppolo was all about. And the fact that he didn't have a succession plan after Garoppolo makes Belichick look even worse. I get it. But please, can this be something fun for people? As a diehard Patriot fan who was literally raised on this dynasty, starting at 9 years old, going until I was, 27, 28? It has become just an asinine thing for me to watch. Something that I will never watch ever again because, yes, it makes me this heated, but because I know that's not what actually happened. Trying to rewrite the dynasty's history is absolutely asinine to me. So, on that note, I want to thank you guys once again for tuning in, episode 8. Marcus, I appreciate you coming in with the comments. This is the Boston Sports Summit. My name is Tim Barnett. I am your host. And again, I am just a guy who grew up loving Boston sports and is pumped that he finally gets to talk about it and have his show. So please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. It helps with the algorithms on YouTube. You can check me out on Instagram right over here at Boston Sports Summit. You can check me out on Twitter, Boss, B-O-S, Sports Summit. Then you can also find me on YouTube, Boston Sports Summit. And every Wednesday, we are live here on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. And on Tuesdays, check out the 8 o'clock spot. I am going to try to be on next Tuesday. That's right. I want to be on next week's 8 o'clock spot. Tuesdays, 8 p.m. on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. And you can find the Boston Sports Summit live every Wednesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, here on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. So thank you guys for tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy the last 2 episodes of the Dynasty because I will. Like I said, I'm just a local guy who is pumped to talk about his favorite teams. So thank you for listening to the Boston Sports Summit and sticking around. I'll be back next Wednesday, 7 p.m. on the Grid Network's YouTube channel. See you guys then.